welcome to episode 90 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. This week, Hyundai gets into the home energy game, a Canadian city adopts a low-carbon concrete policy, and spinning Dohickeys launch South Australia past 100% renewable energy. All that and more of this edition of the Clean Energy Show. Ryan, how are you, and what's new with you, sir?
Well, what's new with me is I'm going to introduce a new segment on the show.
What?
It's called Stories of the Outside World. And I forgot to make a theme song, but that's the new segment.
Okay.
I'm starting to get out more, into the world. Our fourth wave of COVID is finally subsiding. I'm feeling a bit more adventurous. So yeah, I've been going out and been doing things in the outside world, which is kind of a novelty.
Yes, it is. And it may end too, the way things are going with the virus.
Right. So the prediction I heard was we can probably expect the fifth wave in February.
Oh, great.
We're in that valley right now. So I think now's the time to maybe get out a little bit because come February, will probably be more, COVID again. But anyway, so I decided to drive 2.5 hours.
Oh, wait, this is the segment now?
Yeah, this is it right now.
Okay, let me play some music for it then. Adventures from the outside world, or stories from the outside world.
Yeah. So, I decided to drive 2.5 hours to Saskatoon to see a movie.
What?
Which is a thing that I like to do sometimes.
Are you a crazy teenager? Come on, man. You're middle-aged. You have a job that you're going to retire from one of these days. Yeah. And you're doing crazy teenager things like that?
Well, I can recall. Remember when the movie Total Recall came out, the first one, the original?
Yeah.
I drove to Edmonton to see that. That's an 8-hour drive. Yeah. Because it was playing at a very, very crappy theater in our city, but it was playing at a movie palace in Edmonton. And so, me and a couple of friends, we drove to Edmonton to see it on a proper movie screen. And that's the case here. So the new Jane Campion movie is out called The Power of the Dog. And it's playing at kind of a crappy screen in our city. But in Saskatoon, it's playing at the Roxie, which is this fabulous 1930s movie palace that's been restored. And it's lovely and wonderful. And I want to get out more. And And of course, to drive electric, it seems a little less wasteful to do something stupid like that if you're driving electric.
It does. I've done a lot of crazy things that I would have never done in my hybrid. Yeah. Just because, A, it doesn't cost anything to do it, and B, I feel like I'm not being an eco-terrorist, although I am. I mean, technically I am, because I'm burning fossil fuels to do it. But we have done a lot more exploring and a lot more driving and it's been enjoyable. It's been very enjoyable, especially for my son.
No, and I will say I've had my Tesla Model 3 for 2 years in March. I've already put 40,000 kilometers on it.
Ooh, that's pretty good for a pandemic.
Yeah.
That's quite impressive, actually.
Yeah. And of course, we have another car, a gasoline car. But when you've got an electric, you tend to drive that one more. So we only drive the gas one if we have to. But anyway, so I decided to drive to Saskatoon to see a movie. And I stop in Davidson, which is the Tesla charge point halfway. Mm-hmm. And I start charging up my car. And I discover that the charging is free, which means that, yes... What? The referral code has finally come through from our listener, Brent. So Brent here in Regina bought a Tesla Model S and he used my referral code. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't realize it until I was charging, and you can see on the screen how much it costs. And the cost was $0. So I was like, oh, fantastic. So I looked in the app, and sure enough, in the app, it says that the car has been delivered. And then just like the next day, I got a message from Brent on Twitter to say, hey, my car got delivered. And I was able to say, I know it's been delivered because my app told me so. So, Brent, this is his first EV. He used to have a Chevy Volt. And he's now got
did he sell it? Because I might be interested.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he still has it, but so yeah, he's still got a Tesla. So he's got a Tesla Model S. It's the long range. It's not the Plaid, but it's still like, crazy fast.
Pretty decent car. One of the best ones out there.
Oh, I mean, it's an amazing, amazing car. But yeah, I asked him if he had any thoughts about it since it was his first EV, and he said, they drove, picked it up in Saskatoon, drove it down. He said it felt like it was driving the future. He said the vehicle was near flawless. It was like really well made, an exceptional build quality. He loved the Tesla shop crew in Saskatoon were fantastic. Of course, it's got the yoke steering wheel. And he says after less than 500 kilometers driven, he's totally gotten used to the yoke. So that's fantastic. And been giving lots of rides to family members. And he's expecting that they're going to use his referral code soon because people are impressed with the car. And one family member said it's the closest thing. It felt like the closest thing it felt like was like taking off in an airplane. That's the launch in the Model S.
Well, that's always good to hear, isn't it? I mean, congratulations, Brent, on your new and first full EV. It's pretty exciting when that happens.
Yeah, so I continued on my drive to Saskatoon, and now very quickly we will go to Brian's Movie Corner, a segment within a segment.
Brian's Movie Corner. Ooh, it's been a while.
Yeah, so it's not EV related, so I'll make it quick. But yeah, it's the new Jane Campion movie. She's most known for the movie The Piano with Holly Hunter. And she has not directed a film in a long time, like over 10 years. And so great director. And, I just wanted to get out of the house too, pandemic and all. And drove up to see it. It's a decent movie. It's very slow. It's very subtle. It's definitely what you'd call like an art movie. Maybe not for everybody. But it was great to see it on the big screen at the Roxie Cinema. Shout out to the Roxie. It's an amazing place. And it will be on Netflix like in a couple of days. Like it's a Netflix movie, but they gave it a little bit of a theatrical window.
And I'm surprised that theatrical window was in Saskatoon in our little corner of the woods here.
Yeah, and I've seen other films there, and I'm hopefully going back on New Year's Eve. I've got tickets for every year they do a thing at the Roxy where they commission a band to write a new original music score for an old silent movie. So there's one coming up on New Year's Eve. I've got tickets. It's a band called Snake River, and it's a movie called The Phantom Carriage, which is a Swedish movie from 1921 by Sjöström, Alexander Sjöström, something like that. He was kind of like Ingmar Bergman's mentor. He's the star of the movie Wild Strawberries, if anyone has seen that, if they're up on their Swedish art movies. But hoping to go back on New Year's Eve. I've got tickets. I'm a little worried, the COVID might be too heavy to actually go, and I think it's going to be full capacity. So
that sucks.
That'll be a bit more risky. And the other thing, of course, about seeing the movie that I did on Saturday was I was going to the matinee, and I knew, a matinee for an art movie in a giant like 600-seat theater, there's only going to be like 8 people there. And sure enough, there was about 8 people there. So felt very safe.
Yeah. My daughter takes the school bus to French Immersion across town, which is a program we have in Canada. If you're not from Canada, you can send your kids into French Immersion school for free, which is a terrific, choice to be able to have. But she has to travel quite a ways on a school bus, and apparently there was a positive case on her school bus, and so now she's a close contact. Mm-hmm. And then after that, that was before I pulled her out of school, but I pulled her out of school when I found out that the kid behind her has a sibling who's COVID positive. So the way they're doing it now is they're sitting in their classroom in their seats all day long, lunch hour and some recesses even, depending on the weather. So you have this kid breathing behind you through a mask who's vaccinated, but still, there's not that many cases at our city, and they're all at my damn kid's school now at a very convenient time. So I feel I'm not great about this whole thing. Like, we have COVID tests at home that the school board provided anyway, and a couple from my partner's work. So we're testing on we don't want to burn through all the tests, but, we're keeping an eye on things. Yeah, I thought I had a sore throat last night. Scared the poop out of me, but it went away.
That's the worst. That's the worst. And kids age 5 to 11 have started to get vaccinated where we live. So that's a good sign.
Listen, I also wanted to talk about my solar this month because November is ending and something remarkable has happened. I noticed that not only is my November solar way up, but it's actually twice of some of the months of previous years. And that's unheard of. Like when you might have a bump over other years because of fluke and weather, but this is 2 times. I mean, that's really weird, isn't it?
Yes. Although I will say I've had my panels like a year longer than you. And the first year that I had it, it was pretty high. Now, this year is higher, but if you'd had yours for one more year, the difference wouldn't be as much probably.
Well, I've got 3 years that are low and one here that is twice as high as the other ones. And, part of it might be that this, it's just warm out. It's not necessarily that it's been sunny. I thought, well, maybe we're just unusually sunny for November, but it could also be that we're used to getting a snowfall here and there, and they've melted away fairly quickly because of the warmer temperatures. Either way, it's weird for climate. And by the way, Brian, those lower numbers that you see there are what my solar installer predicted based on 40 years of climate predictions. So it is an anomaly, I think. Although it's quite weird to think that 2 times, because your panels are supposed to become less and less efficient over time as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Hyundai is launching something new. Do you want to just tell us what that is about?
Yeah, so they seem to be taking a page out of Tesla's playbook, and they want to be a full kind of home energy solution. So Hyundai is now going to be offering solar panels coming soon, home energy storage batteries coming soon, and a home EV charger coming soon. So none of this is officially launched yet, but that's basically the Tesla playbook to offer all of these things. And hopefully if they all come from the same company, then they can be kind of nicely integrated. Hyundai is the number 2 maker of electric cars after Tesla. So they've been the ones managing, I think, so far to do this the best. I'm a fan of the Hyundai electric cars. And I think this makes a lot of sense to get into a whole kind of ecosystem. And I applaud the move.
I'm just wondering, though, they can't be making their own solar panels. They must be licensing them from someone else.
Yes, there would be a supplier of some kind. It says, they're purchasing solar panels with built-in microinverters.
I don't like
as
those.
Well as available energy storage systems from the same company. So they have a supplier that's supplying the batteries and the panels.
When I talked to different installers, they were anti microinverters. That's when you put the inverters right on the panel because it's up there in the elements, and if one fails, it's bad, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but it's certainly a way to go, I guess.
Okay. Well, the New York Times has a story on inductive charging in roadways, and this is one of my Clean Energy Show pet peeves. Okay? Do you understand why? Like, this is just stupid because it's complicated and expensive and impractical and unnecessary.
It's one of those things that sounds like a super cool idea, but just not practical.
Yeah. Well, the New York Times thought it was a super cool idea and went and talked to people about it. So this is like your cell phone that has inductive charging for those of you who have cell phones that can sit on a pad and charge without actually plugging in a cable. It's the same thing, and they've done this for electric cars for some time. In fact, some people have even, they've had things in their garage, on the base of their garage that they drive into, and a little receiver pad installed on the bottom of their car. Even though some of the older Leaf cars, people have done that. And it's not quite as efficient because you lose some of the charging. But even in that scenario, it's fairly close to where the charger is. So that's kind of the problem with this technology, is you need to get it fairly close. You can't have, the 10 to 15 inches of clearance you would need in a highway. However, it is inefficient. So you don't, you put more electricity in, you're losing some in heat, etc. It's not quite as efficient as other ways, but that's not the problem. What the problem, Brian, is the fact that it's really hard to do. You have to tear up a road, put this stuff in at the cost of $1.1 million US to $2.8 million, which is almost 3 times as much in their range of per kilometer, by the way. That's per kilometer. And you would need, if you're thinking about how long it would take to charge, especially inductively, it would take, if you're going 100 kilometers an hour, you would probably need 50 kilometers of this. So 50 to 150, like a stadium's worth of money to just to do one little place in the world. It makes no sense. And people who do this are not looking at the trajectory of things, which is what we often talk about on the show, almost 3 times a show. The trajectory of things, you have to look at where things are going, not where they're at. The trajectory is that cars will have more denser, more energy-dense batteries, more cheaper batteries, bigger batteries, then they'll charge faster. Basically, it'll be possible to have the same experience as a gas car in an X number of years. We are headed in that direction, quite obviously, just like computers get faster every year. So we may not do that. We may not want 800 kilometers of range. Some people might. I think most people won't. They would prefer to have a smaller battery, save the money, save the weight, and just charge more often for 5 minutes a stop or whatever.
And also in a few years, of course, the number of charging stations is going to double, triple, quadruple. And so when you've got a gazillion charging stations around the world, does it really make sense to then spend that crazy amount of money for more that are stuck in the road?
And Chris Nelder is somebody I follow on his podcast. He's an energy analyst and consultant, former manager of the EV Grid Integration Group at Rocky Mountain Institute. He says he'd love to see it work, but the need to redesign cars is non-trivial. It would be a big deal to redesign cars. And are you redesigning a car that's selling all over the world that works in Colorado and California and 3 other places? Or, how does that work? I thought about it and I thought, well, maybe if you have a big city with a hub in downtown where all the buses go, maybe it would make sense to put in, because you've got like 30 buses and streetcars and different things going by. Yeah. Maybe that makes sense to have a stretch of road and they're going by slowly and they're stuck in traffic and whatnot. Maybe there is some sort of, reason for that. As far as long haul trucking goes, I can't see it working for that either because, and I know that's where you need it the most because you want to lower the battery size and keep that weight down. But, there's just too many routes, too many, again, if you're concentrating a lot of trucks at, say, a dock at a ocean that's unloading ocean liner stuff constantly, and there's truck after truck after truck going by, maybe there's some sort of, reason that one company could retrofit their trucks to do sort of charging and that would somehow be beneficial. But they got to withstand all the weight from the vehicles and the roads getting torn up and climate change and I just think this is one of those dumb things that seems like a good idea. Hey, nobody thought of this. This will solve everything. Well, you're solving a problem that doesn't need solving. That's the problem here.
This is the Clean Energy Show.
Now, you wanted to talk about concrete because there's some interesting developments in that area.
Yeah, so I came across this story. The city of Langford in British Columbia in Canada, they're the first Canadian city to implement a low-carbon concrete policy. So beginning in June of 2022, this process will involve using carbon dioxide mineralization technology in concrete for projects larger than 50 cubic meters. Basically, you take CO2, perhaps that's been captured from carbon capture, and you inject it into the concrete as you're making it. And this is a way to minimize the carbon footprint of concrete. And as we've talked about on the show, concrete and steel are 2 of the biggest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. So those are 2 things we're going to have to get under control. But the main reason I wanted to talk about it, because this is just kind of a small city in Canada, But, we often talk about, things like the climate change deniers around here, particularly here in oil country, who want to just keep doing what they're doing. And but, the problem is that even if climate change is fake, even if climate change is not real, the majority of planet Earth believes that it is. And so you have people on a city council in a small Canadian city making decisions about, the carbon level of concrete. And, perhaps the concrete industry could get all up in arms and hire some lobbyists and go to the city council and get this squashed. But it's just going to happen again in another city and in another city. And someone else will make a rule about low carbon steel. And, the European Union is making rules about low carbon steel and concrete and so forth. So, yeah, it's just one of those things where, even if you think climate change is fake, you can't stop the progress. You can slow it down. But, as soon as you squash something like this policy in Langford, it's going to pop up somewhere else. And these changes are absolutely, totally, and completely inevitable because the majority of the world believes that climate change is real.
This is breaking news, Brian. I feel like it's breaking news. I've never heard this before. This is the first region to do this that I've heard of, unless someone wants to tell me different.
Well, I started reading the local newspaper from Victoria, BC, because I've always kind of enjoyed newspapers, but I don't know.
How much time do you have, man? You're driving to movies in other cities, and now you're reading newspapers from... Come on.
Yeah, well, I figured out you can get them through the public library and a thing called the Press Reader app. So you sign in through your public library, and it gives you access to different newspapers around the world, digital version of the newspapers. So, I've been for 2-3 weeks now, I've been reading the local paper from Victoria, BC, and just kind of pretending that I live on the west coast of Canada.
Just trying it out. Just
yeah.
Getting your feet wet. All right, it's time for a long lost segment. What do you think?
What do you think?
This is where I ask Brian what he thinks about some of the headlines this week that I don't know what to think about. Brian, it says that Lucid Air is charging faster than the Model S or the Porsche Taycan, which is known for its fast charging. Do you believe that? Do you think this is, do you trust them that they're not wrecking their battery by doing this?
I think it's possible, but yeah, it should be treated with skepticism because if you do charge these things too fast, you can end up probably harming the battery. So I would tend to trust Tesla, who's had more years of working with stuff. And the other thing I always bring up when it comes to charging speeds is the overall efficiency of the vehicle matters as well, because if you've got a more efficient vehicle, it needs a smaller battery, and a smaller battery always takes less time to charge. So that's the main advantage of the Tesla Model S over the Porsche Taycan. Is the Porsche Taycan charges really fast, but it's way less efficient. So it's got a much bigger battery to charge to go the same distance. So Lucid, I think, maybe is somewhere in between the two. It sounds like they have decent efficiency, decent battery, decent charging, but still remains to be seen. Not too many firsthand accounts of the Lucid yet.
There's a Cultura poll that U.S. voters support full transition to EVs by 2030. And yet, the Biden government is not pushing for that. They have not set a date, to my knowledge.
Yeah, it's they've got obviously a lot to contend with there. The U.S. automakers are lagging very, very sadly far behind in the EV race. As I said, Hyundai is number 2, and I think Volkswagen. I don't know that the GM is probably the legacy automaker from the U.S. that ranks the highest for most EVs being made, but they're in the top 10, I think, but just barely.
All right. The University of Toronto has a team that has won the $250,000 XPRIZE that Elon Musk came up with to award to people who had the best idea to fight or to sequester or remove carbon. Our own government here, I think, applied for it, for their carbon capture plant at the coal generating station, which is sort of working some days, not others. Who cares, right? billions of dollars. So, yeah, they applied for it, which I thought was just stupid. Anyway, it's not a new technology. Even their technology has been around for a while. But they've come up with the eQuester team, which formed earlier this year and created a method of capturing and isolating carbon dioxide to create a net reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The traditional carbon capture processes isolate CO2 by turning it into a solid salt. Then they heat the salt back up to create CO2 gas. However, the heating process is an expensive endeavor, which we know makes coal even more expensive. So why burn coal? Sorry, I'm losing it. It's my blood pressure. Again, you know how coal gets me mad. The eQuester method skips the heating step and instead uses an electrochemical process to recover carbon. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing of it, but it sounds fascinating. The problem with this kind of technology so far is, it's just been too expensive. Direct air capture is really the thing that we need, where you're sucking it right out of the air.
Do you think that'll ever work?
Well,
on a big basis?
That's the problem. Is this is why we need something like the XPRIZE, is to figure out a way, if it's ever practical, because it's got to be something that is scalable, something that's affordable. And obviously this team has made something of progress if they want a prize.
Okay. Well, let's get into Australia then, because you have more Australian news for, 5 Australian listeners.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a dozen by now.
Oh, okay. Well, it could be.
Yes. Drop us a line if you're listening from Australia. So, so wind and solar grab a world record 135% of state demand in South Australia. So there's a bunch of renewables on the grid, but they had been limited before in terms of how much they could supply to the grid, because you got to take the whole grid into account. And if it's working with a natural gas plant, you kind of have to coordinate the two. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they have changed sort of like the rules governing this, as well as adding 4 spinning machines known as synchronous condensers. And that's the spinning doohickey we referred to at the top of the show. So I have in no way understand what these things are, but it sounds like it's a big spinning flywheel that you can put energy to and take energy from. So the problem with, of course, with any grid is having a steady supply. That's the thing you always need for a grid, is it's got to be always kind of outputting a steady supply. So if you have a super sunny, windy day, you might end up with too much power. So what it sounds like is when you have too much power, it can go into these synchronous condensers, which essentially just make them spin faster. It's a type of battery, basically.
Okay.
Where you store it as like kinetic energy. But the fact that it's a big, large, heavy spinning thing means that it's a way to even out that. So, the spinning of it doesn't speed up really quickly and it doesn't slow down really quickly. It maintains a fairly constant kind of rate, and then can feed constant power from it into the grid.
Well, Brian, we've got more letters this week, but they're from the same damn people. In fact, we've got 2 people who have written us novels. I can't really read people's letters every week. You get your own podcast. That's what I say. If you're coming in with a novel to give us every week, why don't you have your own podcast?
Short and concise. That's what we like.
Short and well, sure. We can only read so much. My throat would be bleeding if I read all of our letters that we had this week. But I wanted to get into just a couple of parts of those letters to be really quick about it. Adorn Cornelius said that he was surprised about Japan being number 3 or 4 on the solar per capita list in the world. And he also says that +1 for the funny bits. So we were talking about, do people appreciate us having a sense of humor on a very serious subject? And the answer, to our surprise, I think, is a resounding yes, at least my surprise. Because I wasn't sure. I just wasn't sure. So we have another letter here that says, I was worried about James's blood pressure spiking if the mailbag had dust balls. That doesn't make me angry. That just makes me sad. Just a little bit sad. So I'm writing you to assure he doesn't have a premature heart attack. There's no guarantees there. Thus disappointing your vast international audience. It's my climate activism action for the week. Keep up the spirits of all the climate concerned by keeping your entertaining, educational, and yes, amusing podcast on the air. The trick to getting on the air is to have compliments, lots of compliments, but they're actually genuine, he says. So I too struggle with talking to others about climate change. Everyone around me knows how it is factored into almost everything I do and is super important to me, yet people rarely talk to me about it. And I've become more and more hesitant to talk to people about it because I often get some form of pushback or criticism and, coming from people who say they believe climate change is a big problem, even they push back. So it's very frustrating. And I guess that's why I listen to so many podcasts on the topic like yours. It helps me see that although my circle of family and friends are not like me, there are many people out there who are and care deeply about the climate crisis and are doing something about it. And that's why he joined a group, Activism for Parents, called For Our Kids. So now I meet with a group of like-minded parents and plan climate activism actions, which is very interesting. I had never, a lot of things going on in our small city that we would not be exposed to. So that's one more interesting thing. So he wants a fully electric car. This is Mitchell in Montreal, rather. And he says that he started looking for it, partly related to his boys. He says that he would really like a car with significant trunk space, in other words, storage space. But he doesn't want to spend $67,000, $80,000. I'm with you on that. With options, I mostly decided on the Kia Soul. Now, Brian, you like the Kia Soul. I like the Kia Soul, but the Kia Soul basically has no trunk space. It's a lie. It makes you think it has trunk space, but it virtually has nothing.
It is pretty small. Yeah.
The back seats are practically against the rear window, and unless you're putting the back seats down, which you won't be with boys, you don't have a lot of cargo space. So, so he noticed that it was quite small, and he was biking a few blocks, and he spotted what he thought was an ID4 from Volkswagen. Those are new, and I have not seen one myself. He got all excited and looked it up and realized that he had found the perfect car. Not only is it 1,000,000 times nicer than the Soul, in his opinion, for almost the same price, it is also much bigger and cooler. So he was ecstatic. And then I called the dealer and was told it'd be a year to get one. And then the next dealer said to me, get in line, it's going to be a year and a half. So I got on the list anyway, and then the dealer called me back and told me that due to high demand and low supply, they're only making the top-of-the-line model, the most expensive models. So I wanted a more affordable base model. I'm looking at 2 years. This is for the people who are making EVs. This isn't even the people who aren't. This is Volkswagen, who is making EVs compared to other companies who are known for not making very many. So what a downer. So I switched to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is also getting great reviews. So it has less cargo space than the ID4. Not much, though, I don't think. And it's a bit more expensive, too. Again, kind of cool, though. I think it's a much better reviewed vehicle than the ID4 overall, especially with driving and features and such.
Yep.
He's one up from the base model that includes a heat pump and super fast charging. I wish the heat pumps would just come standard on these things, especially in northern climates. So this one I should have in no time, maybe by July, which is no time in EV. It's a bad time for supply and demand right now.
No, and even if you were to buy a Tesla, which are making the most of them, and they're way backed up. The demand is crazy. If you were trying to buy a Tesla right now, there would be similar waiting lists. I could probably sell my Tesla for the same amount of money that I bought it for. There's such demand right now. Crazy. And furthermore, if you got one brand new, you might be able to sell them for more. Yeah.
Don't get any ideas. The person who you just got one in our town here gave us the code, which, by the way, are they still giving away referral codes or no? Is that done?
Well, no, you can't do that anymore. So, I was lucky to get that in under the wire.
I wouldn't be surprised if it comes back when supply outpaces demand, then they'll need it to they might want to use it for a while anyway.
Yes, exactly. They don't have a demand problem now, so no need for a referral program.
Yeah, so we do like to hear from you. Just don't write us a novel every week. We can get your own podcast. There's instructions on the internet, and then we'll mention your podcast if you do want to get a podcast. But we do like to hear from you. We just, see, my throat is sore. I can feel the blood starting to drip down the back of my throat, Brian. It's just been a bit too much. So contact us at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. I'm not complaining, okay? I'm not complaining. I do like to hear from people, and we do read your emails, even if we can't get them all on the air. And that's good, too, because we want to know what you're thinking. So on Twitter or TikTok, Clean Energy Pod. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for special features. And of course, we are huge. And the TikTok thing bothers me, Brian, because we're probably twice as big on TikTok as we are in podcasting. or worse. But there's only like 20-second bits coming and going. People don't really remember us and write us letters. So
TikTok is fleeting.
It's a different experience.
TikTok is fleeting. Podcasts are forever.
Yes, podcasts are forever. There, you heard it from the boss. Don't forget to check out everything that we do, and in speakpipe.com/Clean Energy Show, especially from your Australia, because I want to hear your beautiful Australian accent. Speakpipe.com/Clean Energy Show. You can leave us a voicemail. However, you have to be concise because it cuts off after a minute, like most voicemails do. And then coming up on the show, you know what? It's the lightning round. And that's where we address the headlines that we didn't get to. You have some Tesla news, Brian Stockton.
Yeah, so a few things going on in the Tesla world. They're expanding their factory in China. They're spending a couple $100 million to make the factory bigger. But we're also hearing rumors that even with the current size of the factory, that their production numbers are up. So these are only rumors at this point, but the world's largest car factory is a Volkswagen plant in Germany, and it makes 800,000 cars a year. So the rumor is that the Tesla factory in China has surpassed that now in terms of its installed capacity. They haven't done that yet, but I don't know. Cars are flying out of there is the rumor. Really, when it comes to Tesla, everything's always a rumor because they don't have a PR department, so they don't confirm or deny any of this stuff. So much of the Tesla news is sort of wrapped up in rumors. And so continuing on rumors, Berlin Tesla factory should be starting production soon. It sounds like they've made a few test vehicles. They're getting to the end of their approval process in Germany. So that factory should be running soon.
What do you think about the unionizing that might be going on there?
And yes, there were rumors about unionizing at the Berlin factory. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. It sounds like it's probably a trade-off between unionizing and stock options. One of the best things about working for Tesla is you get stock options, and this has worked out very well for a lot of the employees. And it's one of the reasons they haven't been clamoring to start a union thus far. But who knows? It's a different thing in Germany, and maybe they have different ideas there, and we'll see how that goes.
Why do you think they turned down a $1 billion subsidy? Can you explain that one to me?
Yeah, so again, Tesla doesn't have a PR department, so you have to kind of rely on Elon to tweet a couple of things. And so, yeah, there was a subsidy available for them in Germany for making batteries. This is a subsidy to fight climate change, basically. And so, yeah, Tesla had applied for and was approved for, it was around $1.3 billion of subsidy to make batteries in Germany. But they recently turned it down. And so it sounds like from what Elon was tweeting that there's just a few too many hoops to jump through, that money like that always comes with restrictions. And it sounds like it might have slowed them down, that it's something to do with, like, it was supposed to be for new technology. So their new technology is the 4680 battery. But if they end up producing those batteries first in Texas, then it wouldn't necessarily count for the subsidy in Germany. So since Tesla seems to be flush with cash these days, they just turned it down. They don't need
right. It's $1 billion. It's $1 billion.
Yes. No, it's
I know that's a lot to even you, but that's a tremendous amount of money for most companies to just say, yeah, it's okay.
But the Tesla balance sheet is like looking better and better every day. They have still have debt, but they're paying down their debt rapidly, so they could be debt-free before too long. They're making huge margins on the cars, and this is before their new factories are even open. So, they are doing well money-wise. And that gets us to our next little Tesla story, which is the federal rebate for buying a Tesla in Canada, which is a rebate that I got when I bought my car almost 2 years ago. If you're below $55,000, you can qualify for a $5,000 federal rebate on an electric car in Canada. But Tesla keeps ticking up their prices. The supply chain has made things more expensive. Inflation is definitely happening right now. So Tesla keeps raising the prices of their cars. And so now they have raised prices in Canada to the point where there is no Tesla that qualifies for the EV rebate in Canada. So it just got, $5,000 more expensive to buy a Tesla in Canada. And I'm very glad that I got mine when I did.
And our friend probably took advantage of that too, because he ordered quite a while ago, wasn't it? Like 6 months
but that
ago?
car wouldn't qualify anyway because it's too expensive.
Oh, right. It's an S, one of the full size sedan, and very expensive. But at the end of the quarter, there's always this annoying Tesla push, and work around the clock, get all the cars out you can. We need to make a record number. They're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, so that was the other big news from this week. Elon sent an email around to the Tesla employees. Don't worry about the end of quarter push, which is something they have cared a lot in the past because they needed to deliver as many cars as possible, because what the market cares about is not the number produced, but the number delivered. So there was always a crazy push to deliver cars at Tesla at the end of the quarter to make their numbers look good, to keep, the stock market happy, and to make their balance sheet look good. But I don't know. Again, I think they've just sort of turned a corner in terms of supply and demand. They've got lots of cars. They've got lots of demand. So they've put an end to the end of quarter push. They're just going to try and do it more efficiently throughout the whole quarter, and hopefully not, give everybody the end of quarter anxiety and stress that it was probably causing, because they were always trying to deliver a crazy number of cars.
Seems stressful for no good reason, although I'm glad they hit their targets, because it proved to a lot of people. And you're probably glad too, because your stock price probably went up, and that's good. How's the stock doing right now?
It was up today, has been down a little bit, but
you're happy.
Yeah, Elon is still selling some of his stock. He has to sell about $10 billion worth of Tesla stock to pay some taxes that he owes. So he's about halfway through that. And so selling lots of shares tends to keep a lid on the price. But that should be ending soon. And with these rumors out of China about huge production numbers, I'm expecting good news ahead.
Maybe we can install some in-road charging on the way to your cottage, your rammed earth cottage that your Tesla stock will pay for. Let's get on with the lightning round. This is where we clean up the rest of the headlines and get through them quickly. Brian, a new study suggests that in the UK, replacing car trips with e-bikes could reduce CO2 emissions by up to 24 metric tons a year. That's equivalent to a fifth of the country's total CO2 emissions from transportation. Pretty impressive. And
e-bikes
doable.
Are absolutely the future.
Did you see... You know this thing on the news where there's people in mobs robbing stores? I don't know how you haven't seen that? It's happening in LA and places in the States. And they're using e-bikes to go into like a Walgreens with a garbage bag and just pile everything into the garbage bag and take off on their e-bike. I saw footage of it. It's giving e-bikes a bad name. But
making robbery more efficient.
There is this weird thing going on. So some Instagrammers have used the Rivian pickup truck, newly released, to do some towing. And what they did is they towed 14,000 pounds on a trailer. It was estimated to be 14,000 pounds. It basically was a sports car on a car trailer. And they towed it at 117 kilometers an hour. And that netted them a 64% range loss, which does not surprise me. In fact, I think that's pretty good. basically in EVs, you're losing 2/3 of your range, but you're also not, nobody tows at 117 kilometers an hour. If you are towing at 100 kilometers an hour, you're a madman. You're a rebel. You're a reckless idiot. Most people tow at 90, 95 kilometers an hour if they're towing anything substantial. I'm not, this is me in Canada, but I don't know what the American culture is for towing, but basically you just do not put your transmission or car, or it's just a dangerous thing to be, pulling all that stuff around at 117 kilometers an hour. So I try to select 2-lane highways when I'm towing my camper, just so I can, maintain a decent speed without annoying people, because you want to clog up the highway. Although one day, Brian, I would like to tow at that speed if EVs will allow it and the batteries are big enough. So that's interesting. That's our first reports on towing, and that's something that a lot of people are interested in, because towing is a dream in an EV. The BMW i4 customer deliveries have begun in Germany 3 months early. So some good news on the speed of things happening front.
Yeah, that's great. This is their new electric sedan.
Australia is spending $7.8 billion annually to subsidize diesel vehicles, and basically nothing to help EVs become more affordable. That just pisses me off.
Why are they subsidizing diesel?
Well, they're subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, and apparently it's been added up to be $7.8 billion so that people can drive diesel and keep the prices down. You know how it is.
Yeah.
So Germany's incoming coalition government, which was just formed this week, has decisively moved towards being the fourth largest economy on climate. And this is what they're going to do, Brian. They are going to cut coal by 2030, like we are in Canada, but that's 8 years ahead of schedule, which is good. They've moved that up, and that's pretty substantial thing to talk about. So you're going to be at 80% renewables by 2030. We're looking at 50% where we live. Not cool. 15 million EVs by 2030. And they said that step by step, this is a quote, step by step, we are ending the fossil fuel era, says the coalition agreement in writing. So congratulations, Germany. You're once again not fooling around, even when you have a coalition government made out of 42 small parties, or how many ever it is. It's quite a few.
Yeah.
Portugal has shut down its last coal plant, and it is the fourth EU nation to do that. And when I say they shut it down, I don't mean they plan to shut it down. I mean they shut the frickin' thing down on the weekend. It's gone.
Nice.
That type of thing. Shut down. Dodge, finally this week, Dodge is phasing out gas-powered Chargers and Challengers. Those are the sports car driven by very annoying people on our roads everywhere. We will not have to breathe their fumes anymore or listen to their engines make noise, because they are going electric.
Yeah, well, these are their big muscle cars, basically.
Yeah.
And they are really fast, crazy fast. But it's an old-fashioned American muscle car. And but of course, we all know that if they go electric, they'll be even faster. So, why bother?
Yes, that's our time for this week, everyone. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it always. And do get in touch and let us know what you're thinking. I will be at the Regina Public Library Film Theater on Thursday, December 2nd, 2021 at 7 p.m. with my presentation on electric vehicles in cold climates. For the 8 people who listen in the city here, you might want to come out to that. And if you're an electric vehicle owner, you can come out and help answer some of the questions maybe too. So we look forward to that, and we'll see you next week, Brian.
See you next week.